Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Take the Path Less Travelled. It's rush hour here, so hopefully you can hear me above the incessant traffic noise. Try to walk somewhere calm and peaceful, but obviously now might not be the right time. Anyway, we're doing a series of reports, if you like, dialogues about my life in Indonesia. This one is going to be called Indonesian Transport. There's so many forms of transportation in Indonesia. Probably the most popular one is scooter. They say motorbike, but they're not really powerful enough to be called motorbike, so I call it scooter. Just try and cross this incredibly busy road. Scooters are owned by the wealthy, the middle class, and the not so wealthy. In fact, one way to tell if a family is wealthy in Indonesia is if they have a car and a scooter parked in their driveway. Usually more than one car and more than one scooter. If the family is not so wealthy, they may only have one scooter between them all, maybe the husband, the wife, and the kids. But anyway, I also use the scooter to get around, but not because I have one, because you can hire them. We have such a concept in Indonesia called ojek. This is where you can hire a scooter to get from place to place using an app. Now these apps have only been around for 10 years or so, but they're incredibly popular and very useful. Can take you virtually everywhere you want to go. So ojek is how I get around for, I'd say, medium to long distances if the weather's dry. Another popular form of transportation in Indonesia is the train. The train, if you're living around the Jakarta or Greater Jakarta area, is very useful because there are many stations and they go all the way from North Jakarta down to Bogor and everywhere in between. However, if you're living outside the Greater Jakarta area, the options become significantly less. The train travel is also great for traveling between cities. That's one of the more enjoyable train aspects, because you can book a ticket, you can reserve your seat in advance, and then there's no problem. You just show your ticket at the desk and then get on and you've got a guaranteed seat. Whereas on the more local trains, it's a bit chaotic at times, being in the world's most populous city. Good luck getting a seat at the more popular times, like Monday to Friday 6:30 to 9 a.m. or Monday to Friday 4 p.m. to 7. Sundays are increasingly popular now, yeah. It's difficult to get a chair sometimes on the train, but because I'm lucky and generally lucky, I mostly get a seat, but not always. And even if I do get a seat, I have given it up to someone older or someone pregnant in the past. The local train is not only incredibly popular, it is also incredibly cheap. For a short to medium distance, the train company will only charge you around 3,000 rupiah. For slightly further away, can be 4,000 or 5,000. But still, that's only like 25 pence if you're coming from Great Britain. That's a one-way fare. Another form of popular transportation in Indonesia is of course a car, but the wealthy people have those, but the not so wealthy do not. Car driving in this country is not up to the same standard as I've seen in many other countries or most other countries. A lot of the drivers look completely dazed or lost or confused. A lot of them spend too much time looking at the phones, so they're not concentrating on the road. They go extremely slowly and take up space on the road, block it, because a lot of the roads are narrow here, and the motorbikes and other vehicles and people cannot get past. Petrol is incredibly cheap here still though, so that's good. As I say, the not so wealthy people do not have cars. They get around mostly by scooter, even if it's wet. Buses. Now, Greater Jakarta and Jakarta area both have extensive bus networks. However, it can be unclear for me as a foreigner to know exactly where to get on them and exactly where they go to and where you can get off. So for these kind of reasons, I tend to trust the train more. And when you get on the train, there's a map of all the stations and interchange stations and the final destination, but on the bus not so much. So I think they need to work on that if they want more passengers for the buses here. The good thing about the bus transport option is similar to the train, that it's also very cheap, only 3,000 to 4,000 if you're traveling in Jakarta or Greater Jakarta area. I recently took an intercity coach. That's a very interesting way to travel because it's incredibly popular and crowded. And unfortunately at times they allow more people on the coach than there are actually seats, so it can get very congested and people are standing like for distances of more than 20, 30, 50 kilometers, which is a bit ridiculous. As I experienced last month, I took an intercity coach and after about 15-20 minutes I had someone standing behind my right shoulder for the entirety of the journey because there weren't enough seats left. However, this is also a cheap way to travel. Can be anything from 50,000 rupiah to 100,000 rupiah and prices in between for a one-way fare between one city to another. Some people, some of the hardier people do use bicycles, but you don't see many bicycles in Indonesia. It's much easier to use a two-wheeler with a motor than a two-wheeler without a motor. So they are less common than maybe in European countries, the bicycle. You don't see many people walking in Indonesia. You don't see many people running, apart from maybe at university campus or on the beach like where I am now. I live near the university campus, and you see a lot of the students jogging and walking for exercise, as I'm doing now. It's a good way to stay healthy in Indonesia. However, walking outside central Jakarta brings its own problems, because Indonesia doesn't really invest in pavements. And you can often find yourself walking or jogging on the road, which is incredibly dangerous when you consider the amount of traffic and vehicles that use the road. You're kind of relying on someone to see you, which, you know, some of them go at quite high speeds around the road, so it can be a bit hairy at times. But I do a fair bit of walking and I'm still here, so touch wood, it continues. I haven't really travelled by ship or boat in Indonesia much, so that's something I'll need to look to do at some point. Plane travel in Indonesia and getting from this country to another is also increasingly popular. When I first moved here, there weren't many, how could you describe them as, budget airlines? But now they're becoming more and more budget airlines and cheaper options to travel. Especially one thing I don't like at all, which is kind of ridiculous here, is it's cheaper to fly to Malaysia or Singapore from Jakarta than it is to travel to another province within your own country. There's many cheap flight options to Malaysia and Singapore and Bali, but if you want to go further east like Maluku or Papua, as I do, the ticket prices for flights can be a bit ridiculous, so it's something you have to weigh up. Well, I've covered scooter, I've covered bus, coach, walking, running, car, I've covered train, I've covered plane. There are a couple of uniquely Indonesian methods of travel. One is called a becak, which is like a bicycle with a passenger compartment in front of the bicycle, and you pay someone to cycle you around. This is usually in traditionally old city in Java like Semarang or Jogja or Solo, Surabaya. They still have becaks, but not so many in Jakarta. Another uniquely Indonesian form of travel, at least in the name, is called a becak, bajai, which is tuk-tuk in Philippines, Thailand and in India. A small motorized cart where the driver is in front of you and you get in the back. I don't usually use bajai because the fare is negotiable, and sometimes there can be a communication problem between me and the driver. Taxis in Indonesia are reasonable, especially when you can use the transportation app that you use for motorbike taxi. It also goes the same for regular taxis. You can also wave them down on the street and catch the normal one that aren't on the apps or are not on the apps to the same extent. Yeah, I think that's about it for Indonesian transport. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Take care.